And just want to extend a welcome to David. David, last name Knoppert?
That's right, Bruce, yes.
Okay, and Doug Thompson. That one I can handle, Doug. Made it easy for me. Thank you. And before we get started, last week and this week as well, we just thought we'd play a musical piece in memory of our friend Peter Cook. So Julia, if you're teed up, we'll ask you to Thank you, Julia. So just to introduce this to Doug and David, Peter Cook was our song leader who passed away last week. So we were a singing club. So every meeting when we met in person, we would have a couple of songs that we would sing that were old Rotary type songs. We had a little songbook, and we quite enjoyed that side of things. We have had many Rotarians come through and said, oh, they don't sing and they don't want to sing, but they quite enjoyed it when we did. There are a few good voices in our club, not all of us, I'm afraid. So the other thing we were going to do at this point is just take a couple of minutes if anybody had a story to share about Peter. And I'm going to start off because I've got control. It's great. So I first met Peter when I was doing cub car races. And if anybody attended the funeral, they saw that Peter had been in the scouting cub movement for a few years. And we had the opportunity that the boys could take a block of wood and carve it into something. When we saw some of the cars that Peter's boys came up with, we decided to make it so that parents could do it as well, or leaders. And Peter carved out some of the most beautiful vehicles ever. And we really quite enjoyed when we came to races in the Chatham area to see what Peter had come up with that year. And they were to scale, they were fantastic, and they were made out of a block of wood. So I'm not sure where all of his woodworking talents came. I know as an architect, he designed some pretty good things, but we always enjoyed the cars that he built. And we did have the opportunity last week to see a few of them that they had on display. So still pretty fond mementos that the family had. Would anybody else like to share a little? Tony?
Yes, when I was in grade one, when I started grade one, I was encouraged by my teacher to not sing at anything that was important. If the public was there, don't sing. And being told that in grade one, that does influence you for the rest of your life. And I didn't even know the words to the anthem. And when I joined Rotary, I told Peter this so he wouldn't be offended that I was standing there or sitting there not singing. And but he encouraged me and came up to me after during a number of meetings and encouraged me. And I don't know if any of you have noticed, but I sing. I sing the anthem, and whenever we were singing those songs, I sang the songs if I knew anything about the words, and it's all due to Peter. There is a a 65-year gap in, no, there's a 70-year gap in there between the time I was told not to sing and when I started to sing, but he did it. He did it.
Oh, that's great. Would anybody else like to try and get through a story?
Yeah, just a quick word.
Tom McCarthy?
Peter was one of the first people I met when I came into St. Clair College as the principal of Thames campus. And he invited me to come out and have lunch with him. And then he kind of did an overview of what some of the most important things in the community were, and then volunteered to be of any assistance that he could in supporting the efforts to provide enhanced education for our youth. And it sort of made me feel that this was a very welcoming committee. Then there were just all kinds of things going forward. We worked together on fundraising activities for the polio initiatives that we made. And the Access Open Minds program is the most recent one, in joining Jennifer and myself and others in helping to review the physical space requirements and putting them in place with absolutely no professional cost to us, but a considerable amount of his personal time. So his dedication to the better life of his community is one that's quite unique that I have ever experienced.
Thank you, Tom. Andy?
Yes. Am I live?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. About 10 years ago now, when I agreed to be president of the club, one of the things that I did was interview most of the club members. I got around to pretty nearly everybody, and we had a little survey that we did and had questions for them. I can very well remember going to Peter's office and visiting with him about his architectural work and that kind of thing. And on that little survey, I always had the same question at the end. I wanted to make sure, can you see yourself as president in 5 years? And I remember having that discussion with a lot of people.
Yes, you did.
I see Charles Seaman here. I get with him when he came up. I said, can you see yourself as president next year, kind of thing, and that happened. But anyway, with Peter, we had a discussion, and I can remember him telling me, yes, he would like to be president, but he wanted to retire. He was going to close down the business in a few years, and then when he got into retirement, he'd take his turn as president of Rotary. And I do believe that if his health had held, he would have taken his turn as Rotary president coming up. I'm disappointed that he didn't make it, but I think that he would have been president and would have been a good president of Rotary. Thank you.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. We've got another song we'll play just before we close. But at this point, just going to open up for any other happy thoughts. And my happy thought is I just got scheduled for the vaccine shot next Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning. And there's a bit of a challenge that's going on. I'll send something out by email with some of our local Rotarians from other clubs, that if you give the shot, if you get the shot, you should give the shot. So they're recommending a $25 donation to Polio Plus, so that we can make that shot available to more people. I also saw a bit of disturbing news that 3 of the vaccinators, I believe it was in Afghanistan, were killed yesterday or the day before in their attempts to continue the vaccination through, which should have been set up and cleared in advance, because they finally had the Taliban where they wouldn't be creating problems for us anymore. So that's kind of sad on that side. But happy thoughts. Do we have any other happy thoughts we would like to share?
Me, please.
Yes, Ashley, please.
I just wanted to let everybody here know the Children's Treatment Center of Chatham Kent received the funding that we needed to start the new building. Yay!
That is excellent.
I'm so happy. Yay!
That's a very good news. And yes, I think that was in last week's budget. So I believe it's in the neighborhood of about 20-some million dollars that is being set aside so that after more than 10 years of work, they can finally get the new Children's Treatment Center on the way. So
that's correct.
Great news there.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this time, I'm going to read a couple of bios on the gentlemen who have shown up today to present to us. David Knoppert and Doug Thompson. First, I'll start with Dr. Doug, 43-year Rotarian with multiple Paul Harris fellowships. Doug has been a family doctor in Stratford for 42 years. Currently semi-retired and now managing a nursing home. So as I know most doctors, they don't really retire too quickly. It takes them a while to slow down from about 80 hours a week, I believe. 9 years ago, Doug was a co-founder of COMET, the Canadian Outreach Medical and Mission Team. It's a group working in Nicaragua and under the umbrella of the Rotary Club of Stratford Charitable Foundation. And also presenting with Doug is David Knoppert, retired neonatal pharmacist from London. In 2014, David joined the Rotary Club of Hyde Park. And in 2017-18, he was club president and currently serves the club as club secretary. In January 2017, David took his first trip with the COMET group to Nicaragua. He's on the executive and he's an avid fundraiser, having hit over 6,500 golf balls in 12 hours. Ouch. I feel like I do that in one game. He's currently doing a virtual ride across Canada to raise awareness and raising funds for their projects in Nicaragua. So I've set up for screen share whatever you gentlemen will need. And just to confirm, we do record these meetings, as I've told you, and we ask our local TV station, they carry the sort of speaker of the week. They get it on there in about 2 to 3 weeks, but some people come across them and are quite happy to listen to what our local club presents. Who's up first, David?
Brett, Doug will be up first, but just wanted to thank you for welcoming us this morning. That's very nice, and we appreciate that. That gentleman, Peter Cook, must have been quite a man. Would have liked to meet him. So Doug's going to start, and then I'm going to take over. So Doug.
Hi, well, thank you very much as well for inviting us, and special thanks and hurrah to Ashley for joining your group. And I wish we had somebody as young as her in our group or in our Rotary Club. Our Rotary Club has 100 and some members, so I can imagine on Zoom what the sound would be like if they all sang. So we're what we call a non-singing club, but we keep working at it. We have a couple good vocals in the club. This always seems like family when I come to a Rotary Club, and hearing the eulogies about Peter and so forth reminds me very much of our own club. And then looking at your webpage, a lot of the projects you do are very similar to ours. So, it's easy to feel at home in a club like this. I'm going to screen share now if I can. So we termed this talk an electric car for $300. And that has a symbolism because the car is kind of a symbol of our lifestyle in developed countries, but it also has a deeper symbol, which I think you'll probably see by the end of the talk. And that's kind of an encouragement to have you stay till the end so that you find out what the answer is. So I guess we all know that there are three major problems in our time. Well, there are many problems, but three really major problems. That's COVID. That's in our face at the moment, but we see an end in sight. They're spending trillions of dollars on that endeavor to get us out from under. The second one is climate change. And that's, you know, if COVID is in our face, climate change is rotting our body, a much more serious long-term problem. And the governments are seeing fit to spend a few $1 million on that endeavor. And of course, the third is peace and conflict in our time. And you only have to tune into any news station any night to find out how bad that is. So, you know, we know this is a problem, but really, do we believe it? Because we're not getting a lot of buy-in here or engagement by our communities and population, unfortunately. Maybe it's because we're overwhelmed by COVID. Maybe it's because we're afraid and denial's an easier path to take. Maybe it's living in the now. I don't know, but I do know that we aren't engaged enough to deal with this problem. So things aren't looking good, certainly in the area of climate change. So why is Rotary important? And you know, maybe I should have turned this talk how Rotary can help save the world, because I think that's what we're getting down to right now. We're seeing a nationalism, and we're an international body. We can't allow nationalism to override internationalism. It's not every man for himself. It's not America first. It's not Covian nationalism. So, you know, that's not what Rotary is all about. You know, we all worry about being impactful, and, you know, we try ways in our community, but, you know, I think we're kind of lackadaisical about it because we don't feel we can make a big impact. We don't see other people around us making an impact. So how can we be more impactful? And then we have the four-way test. We all joined Rotary for a reason, you know, service above self. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Etc. And, you know, it's hard to live up to that in this day and age as well, especially internationally, knowing everything that's going on. And, you know, we need to work collaboratively and together. And we've seen, as your President Brett just mentioned, how Polio Plus, we're all working on that and working together. We've been able to do a remarkable transition in saving lives and in almost eradicating that disease from our country. Maybe, just maybe, we can do the same with climate change. And, you know, it's easy to argue when the tipping point is now, 2 years from now, certainly not longer than the end of the decade, but it doesn't really matter. Every day that's wasted is a day where habitat is lost, species disappear, people suffer more economically, especially in developing countries. And, you know, global warming in the long run is going to cost many more millions of lives than COVID ever did. And we're not at the point of solving it at this point in time. So we need to act now. We need to act effectively. We need to act collaboratively. So I draw your attention to Rotary, and they are taking this very seriously now. They've just adopted a 7 focus, the environment, probably the most important focus they'll ever adopt. And although they've been thinking about this for a while with adopting the focus, they've developed a working committee called SRAG, which probably some of you are familiar with, but maybe not all. I would encourage you to Google SRAG and to join. You don't even have to be a Rotarian to join, but they've got a lot of action groups going, tremendous participation by all over the world for ideas. This is going to be a movement that's going to make a difference. So I hope you're part of that. And their motto is, through the new area of focus number 7, Rotarians, as people of action, are given the power to protect and support all life on this, our one planet. Believe me, this is going to be an important organization. Make sure your club is in there and participating. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how our club has been active and how every club can be. Commit was started 9 years ago by a group of us that have been doing missions in Third World for a few years. We wanted to be more effective in that regard. So it started off as a medical mission, but it's evolved into a mission of variable ends and projects that we feel is making a difference. And more recently, a difference in climate change. We became part of the Rotary Club of Stratford about 3 years ago and under their charitable foundation status, although they've been supporting us all along. And we've been very proud of doing that. I just should mention when you gave my introduction, you talked about my 43 years in Rotary. I sometimes use that as credentials for why I'm justified to speak. But in looking at your group, I can see there are probably several people there that may outrank me. And I've been caught on this one before, so I'm not going to brag about that number of years in Rotary. Our commitment, or our motto, mission statement is compassionate commitment to bettering the lives of people in less advantaged countries through effective and collaborative use of medical, social, and educational programs. We work in Nicaragua, one of the most difficult countries, I think, in Central America to work in. The government is quite dictatorial, persecutes their population. There's been revolts they've put down, killing hundreds of young people. The three countries above Nicaragua is that sort of northern triangle, which accounts for most of the migration to the United States, and some make it as far as Canada. Nicaragua, for the most part, migrates to Costa Rica and Panama as they're out. And why are they migrating? Because of poverty, because of lack of hope, because of injustice and persecution within their country. It's as simple as that. It's not because they want to capitalize on our system or whatever. In fact, they would prefer to stay if they had a decent lifestyle and some hope of anything for the future. These are some of the projects we're involved in. I'll just show you a few pictures without going into it in too much detail. These are the medical clinics that we run. We send a team down every year and spend a couple of weeks and minister to a number of rural areas south of Managua, near the city of Nandaime. We always work with the local medical people and local governments, and they kind of establish the rules for where we go and how we work in the communities that we work in. We done water projects. We just got a $100,000 global grant, and we're at this moment drilling wells in 6 villages and upgrading 2 more. This is one of our villages. Before the well was drilled, a water truck comes once or twice a week, fills up 3 pails, and they carry that to their house. Their wells are shallow and dry up in the summertime, or become easily, or during dry season rather, or become easily contaminated. So imagine being rationed with 2 or 3 pails of water for a whole week. You can imagine how, you couldn't do much gardening or anything else with that amount. So, this community now has a well, and they will have all the water they need, and it will open up all sorts of economic opportunities for them. We supply schools with books, musical instruments, etc. We have a garden project, which we've when we first came to many of these villages, they had subsistence crops with corn and beans, and that was about it. The land was quite desolate and decarbonized, not very fit for many other crops. But we taught them various forms of composting. This is a vermiculture composting unit where they add cow dung and worms, and then in 6 weeks they get a rich compost out, which they can use for their crops. This has changed their pattern completely. Now they have rich garden projects. This is the passion fruit. This is only after 2 years of composting and working on gardening projects with them. They grow various things, melons. They've grown a bean crop this year on the hill. They're starting to develop microeconomies around all this now. So a little bit of effort and money put into an area can really take off and mean so much to these people. We send medical equipment down every year in containers. That's one of the beds we sent down. That's an obstetrical bed, by the way. And this is my other co-leader, Janice, talking with the director of the hospital in Nandaime. I wish I had a before picture to show you what the women down there delivered on before this bed was delivered to them, but it was a bit of a stretcher, rusted out, and with a catch basin. Nobody would want to even lie in it, much less deliver in it. We provided COVID relief during this part. We have 2 people that work for us down there, so we're able to work effectively in that community. These are some of the things that we've distributed during 2 hurricanes that struck the area last fall with extensive flooding. Now, in equatorial countries, which are usually the poorer countries, the climate change has made a much bigger difference than it has in our more temperate countries. Although you hear about the deep freeze and the hurricanes and the flooding that's even happening in the States at the moment, but economically and climate-wise, developing countries are much more impacted because they're near the equator. This is some roofing we provided for a typical house in Nicaragua with the roof blowing off, and you can imagine the impact of a flooding would have on those dirt floors. And these people, most of them lost almost everything with the two last hurricanes that went through. So before I'm over to David, I'd just like to say, you know, you're going to have to assess within your own club how active you want to be with climate change locally in your community, and I'm involved in mine as well. Nationally, with your government and supporting them and supporting the parties that you want to make a difference, and internationally with whatever endeavors you can do that. And SREG is certainly one method you can go there. We can have an impact. We can have a very big impact, and maybe we need to lead the charge in this case, the same way we have with Polio Plus. So David, I've said enough. I'm going to turn it over to you now. Thank you very much for sharing these few moments with me.
Okay, thanks, Doug. So I'm going to show a video and then get into our project. So Doug has given you a background of our team commit, and we're going to focus in on a specific project.
They make this world black. My hands were like grease. You couldn't wash it away. The pots were black. The air was black. It was impossible for breathing.
We have seen forest reserves in 3 years completely gone, not a single tree standing there.
Three billion people use biomass, so wood, dung, charcoal, agricultural waste, and they cook those on very rudimentary open fires. That smoke kills roughly 2 million people each year, mostly women and children. So that's double the number of people that die from malaria each year.
The most dangerous activity a woman in the developing world can undertake is cooking for her family. And most of them have a baby on the front or a baby on the back. So that baby is inhaling so much smoke, it's equivalent to 3 packs of cigarettes a day.
Cooking on an open fire contributes more black carbon to the atmosphere than all of the cars and the trucks in the world combined.
To make a ton of charcoal, it takes about 10 tons of trees. The forests are just vanishing.
The production and distribution of ultra-clean cook stoves that nearly completely eliminate smoke and reduce fuel consumption.
Okay, so I stopped the film abruptly there. I'm going to continue on now with the PowerPoint, and we can entitle this what Doug did, or we can also entitle it how you can easily offset your vehicle's annual emissions. This is a picture that Doug took in 2019 when we were in Nicaragua from one of our villages, and this is typical. This lady is in an outside structure. This is not part of the house. Sometimes it's in the cooking areas in the house, but this one is in an enclosed building outside. And you can see what they were talking about in the film. You can see how dark and black the metal is in the background. It's a mother, it's a baby. And this is basically where there would be an open fire stove on top of these cement bricks here. And you can see the cinders from the fire here, and sort of how precarious that situation is right there. So as they said in the film, it's responsible, the smoke is, for millions of deaths around the world. But it's also responsible for respiratory illnesses like chronic bronchitis and associated infectious diseases of the lungs, of the respiratory tract. It causes eye irritation, and it's carcinogenic. There's things like benzene in that smoke. And because it's an open environment there, in terms of open flames, it's very easy to knock something off that stove, or inadvertently touch something or knock a stick off. So it's the mothers and their small children around who are with them who suffer these injuries. And it's not 3 million people, it's 3 billion people who continue to cook with these types of so-called open stoves around the world using various sources of carbon. So what we are going to be doing is installing stoves in the villages where we work. It's called a Husta stove, and I'm not going to go over the details in terms of the science behind this, but there is a science behind the way it's designed, the airflow, and where the fuel is set. So it makes this type of design very efficient. And this is an example of the Husta stove. It was named after the person who co-invented it. So it is enclosed, and you can see at the top there is a grill for cooking, and they can cook tacos and things like that on the surface over there. This part here, the cement, is actually cool to the touch because it's very well insulated. There is a heating firebox inside that is insulated with cinders and tiles, and the stove is vented to the outside through the stovepipe, so none of the smoke stays within the house. It is all vented externally outside. And at this end on the left is where the wood would be placed. So these are beneficial not only from the individual, but from the fact that they're very efficient. So because of the design, it would minimize the accidents and respiratory function and the cancer that you saw in the film that I mentioned earlier. And beyond that, it's very important because it's up to 50% more efficient. So using less wood, it's cheaper. These people are very poor. And because it's using less wood, it's beneficial to the forests. And the amount of time, if they're not able to purchase wood and they have to look for scrap wood, it decreases the amount significantly. And any associated issues resulting from carrying that wood. And that's important because then the mothers and the children can spend on time on other things that are more important, like learning for the kids. So beyond the individuals, there's benefits for us, and this ties in exactly to what Doug was saying, and it's climate change. So the old stove, the open fire type of stove, it produces greenhouse gases and carbon particles in the air that's equivalent to what's produced by one automobile. So with the new stove, because it's 50% more efficient, and what I mean by that is that it uses 50% less wood. So it's more efficient, and it's going to produce less greenhouse gases, less carbon particles into the atmosphere. So it decreases those gases and the particles by 50% or more. And that has been demonstrated. There's special studies that we can tell you about how they do that. And our stoves, we will be going through the official way of measuring that, and I'll tell you a bit more about that as we get on here. So it's incredible that those stoves that probably most of us don't even think about produce more greenhouse gases and carbon particles than all of the world's automobiles. Just think about that for a moment. It's daunting. So our Husta stove involves the stove per se and the bricks and the hardware that goes along with that, but it also involves workers who have to be trained and receive education on how to do this and how to build it, and ongoing maintenance, and an explanation to the people in the village how to care for this. And even before that, although we have not, it's been a buy-in for the villages we've been at, but there has to be a buy-in. The people have to want this And so that's all part of the training that's going to be done. One extremely important part of this project is reforestation that I won't say a lot about during the presentation today, but we have a nursery that's been set up, and Doug showed you earlier the garden project, and the nursery is going to be expanded so that we can grow, and the people down there can grow local indigenous trees, various species, as well as some fruit trees to advance a microeconomy as well. And this is something that we're going to be doing. We're going to partner with an organization, an NGO called Stove Team International. And when I was talking about earlier about the training for the workers and the follow-up in terms of documenting that efficiency, that's where Stove Team International will be involved. And as we go forward, the hope is that we'll be able to obtain credits for the carbon, and that the money that comes from those credits, if this works out, that will turn over to be able to have more stoves being built. So when I sent this, I'd initially read that I sort of advertised it as a Canada-wide bike ride as a fundraiser, and that's what I've been doing. And so how does that tie in with this? Well, it really has enabled Doug and me to speak to clubs across the country, and there's a sort of a focus, and it's been a lot of fun. We've spoken to about 30 clubs, and we'll be speaking to about another 25 clubs in the next 2 or 3 months. Right now, actually, let me see, I'm out of wind a little bit. I just finished this morning, and I'm at 6,350 kilometers. I'm somewhere, I think I may be in the water out there on my way to Newfoundland. And what I've been doing is since the beginning of October, I've been riding 40 kilometers 6 days a week. So about 25, a minimum of 25 days a month, which works out to 1,000 kilometers. And today was actually exactly 6 months, and it was day 150 today. And I'm scheduled to finish the ride in 3 weeks in St. John's, which is fitting, and we're going to have a Rotary meeting in St. John's. So the idea is that I was looking for sponsors, and I'm looking for sponsors to sponsor a stove. And one stove is going to be about $150 Canadian. And our goal with this, we've been fundraising, is 250 stoves and 3,000 trees that would be in 3 villages that we have been serving for many years. Our goal is to raise $50,000 Canadian. And right now, I don't know exactly where we are. Excuse me, my guess is that we're about $25,000 or $30,000. Myself, I've raised about $13,000 or $14,000, but there's other people who've done similar things on our team. Doug and 3 or 4 others have been riding or walking the length of Nicaragua, and so that all of the contributions that they've received and what I've received, I think is going to be around $25,000 or $30,000 at the present time. And so that is what we're looking at, the money that we're able to raise. However, we think that this can go bigger, and it's important that it goes bigger because it's a big problem. So we would like to triple that from 250 stoves to 750 stoves and increase the number of trees from 3,000 to 9,000 trees. And how do we do that? We're going to be applying for a global grant. And so basically $1 or 1 stove becomes 3 stoves. That's what we hope. As of July 1st, we know that the Rotary International sponsoring is going to go down to 0.8. So 1 stove essentially becomes 2.8 stoves. And we're going to be applying for a global grant on or shortly after July 1st, when the area of environment will officially become the 7th area of focus for Rotary. The Time magazine has come up with a committee And they have offered 8 solutions towards this issue of climate change. And there's a number of people who you very well may know on there: Jose Andres, Angelina Jolie, Larry Brilliant, Bill Gates, and Jose Andres, the worldwide chef humanitarian. Out of those 8, he's decided and picked that the open fire of stoves is one area to attack. It should be in those top 8. So what can you do? Well, there's a number of things. Practice what you preach and preach what you practice. You know, that everybody, I hope today, and I hope this goes out to your station, your TV station, it goes out to the people of Chatham, just to share the awareness of issues related to wood stoves. We all know that there's an issue about climate change, but I would not hesitate in saying that I think that most of the people in Canada aren't aware of the impact of these types of stoves on our environment. And like Doug said, now is the time to collaboratively act on climate change. The Time magazine article said that we have until 2030, the next 8 years plus are critical in terms of making changes, because what we do in the next 8 years is going to really dictate where we go after that. We're sort of getting close to the tipping point. And, you know, tying in with all of this is the fact that, you know, with these programs, there is lots of buy-in. There has been buy-in with these people. And as you know, Doug alluded to and I alluded to, there is microeconomies developing. So we're able to help the people with moving forward and maybe making social justice a little bit better in that country. So we think that, and we know that it's easy to make a significant impact in a developing country through this program. So in terms of the first thing, in sharing that everybody, we hope and expect that everybody will. We're hoping, and this is what we say to all the clubs and anybody else we speak to, that we're asking for individual sponsors for a stove for $150 or 2 stoves for $300. And because what I said before about the elimination of greenhouse gases by up to 50% with 1 stove, if there were 2 stoves, that would essentially eliminate the greenhouse gases produced by 1 automobile in a year. And so that's how we came up with our title. You can either, buy 2 stoves for $300 or buy an electric car for $70,000 plus to get sort of the same effect. I guess you're not going to get quite the same drive with the 2 stoves. And and the other thing is becoming involved with a project like this yourselves in one of the countries in South America, Latin America, around the world, in India, in the Far East. And certainly there are resources, and we're willing to help out anybody, but also on SRAG, there's going to be lots of resources there. And Mother's Day is coming up, so we have a nice card that, this is not the card, this is the poster, but we have a nice card that people can get and can give that card to their mother. And it's sort of nice because now with COVID, we can't really get in touch, but it is sort of thinking of it as one gift from one mother to another, because that donation is going to help mothers like that in the picture and their children, and also in a bigger picture help the environment. We also recommend, and not recommend, but we welcome people to come on our trip. It's a beautiful country, and we've had people come along in the past, although it will be a little while before we are able to go back because of the COVID situation. So with that, thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing now, and Doug and I will try and answer any questions if you have any.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, David and Doug. And if we have any questions, if you could raise your hand if I can see you. Or if I don't have your picture on the screen, if you want to say something, I'll catch up to you. Just make sure you unmute first. Jennifer. Unmute. Unmute. There you go.
How many, the average village, how many stoves are you putting in?
The largest so far, the village is, I believe, 125 families. That's in Nandarola. And we're looking at two other villages, which probably have around 80 or so, 70, 80 families. So with three initial villages of 250, that's how it's divided up. And the villages tend to be, there's other villages that we have gone to and continue to go through, and they're about, roughly the same size as that too. So there's around 100 villages plus or minus.
Thanks, David. And there is a question in the chat with regard to, is there a link or anything that people might click on? Or if you can send it to me, I could put it out to the club.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. I have, if anybody would like to donate, I have instructions and I'll send it to you. You can donate by check, which is, it's nice for us to track, but you can also donate by e-transfer, and the instructions are very clear on those. So I'll send that to you later today.
Okay, and I'll forward that out. So thanks, Chandra, for that question. Peter Tanner.
Yeah, Doug and David, I don't know if you know, we're involved in a project in Guatemala where we're putting digital Wi-Fi servers into well, if our second global grant is funded, it'll end up being 100 schools. And these are servers with massive numbers of books and educational videos, et cetera. And the new project, we are actually partnering with a watershed environmental group in the Petén area of northeastern Guatemala to basically teach, to have their material put onto these digital Wi-Fi servers and with laptops in the schools so that we can teach the children about environmental issues. I was wondering if you are familiar with the Rachel, which is this type of thing, because it's something that's very complementary, could be complementary to many of your projects.
A great question, Peter. Thank you very much for asking that. We're certainly going to roll it out to the schools as far as the environmental part of that. And you can piggyback so much on an operation like this, as far as they burn all their garbage in the villages and they don't recycle and, and all that can be, not to mention the carbon storage you get from the reforestation garden projects. We, nobody in our villages have access to Wi-Fi, essentially 2 or 3 leaders have phones that we can communicate with, and that's about it. We tried sending computers down 3 or 4 years ago with an e-library on it of 13,000 books, and that was semi-successful, but unfortunately, because we're not there all the time, wasps got in and made nests in a couple of them, and we had to sort of go back and redo the situation. So it sounds like a good project, Peter, and thanks for the other projects that you're doing. I looked on your website, but I couldn't see any international projects, but we can tie in collaboratively so much in these situations, and we've got to do our individual part. Technology is not going to save us.
Would you have a bit of time maybe at the end of this meeting, because so I could talk to you a little bit further on what we're doing, because there are ways, because the villages that we're dealing with are ones that have no internet, have no cell phone, have no phones, have no nothing. And we're putting in very, very inexpensively Wi-Fi servers with a few laptops in the schools. And it's what we're seeing is making a really big difference.
Absolutely, Peter. I'll put my email and my phone number on the chat line for you, okay? And we can communicate after. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Let me just check. Okay, so I definitely want to thank Peter and David for coming and attending our meeting today. We're going to get a link, and I'll send that out later. It's just surprising, like $150 in what you could put together and how much you can improve the life of somebody in these villages. So like each of our Rotary clubs, there's so many different projects out there that are very much worthwhile. So thank you very much, and we wish you all the best. And the end's in sight there, David. I think you're getting near the last coast.
Yeah, about 20 more days and my wife will be very happy.
Yeah. There's a fellow, we don't quite see him, Les Herman. He's our cyclist in the group. And I think he's probably in awe of how much, how many kilometers you put on the bike this year. So congratulations on that. It's, that's something. My mode of transportation is just a good walk. So, and I'm not getting near that far at all.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And just a couple of updates. I sent out something earlier, or maybe the end of last week. District training for 6380 will be on Saturday, April 17 from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock. There was a link in there about registration if you want to register for anything with regard to the district side of things. Also, I keep reminding April 24, save the date, the district as well as Chatham-Kent. The district has a Great Lakes watershed cleanup as well. Chatham-Kent has a pitch-in campaign. So we'll be looking to actually get together. We'll almost call it like a social. We'll get together and probably divide ourselves up a little bit. I've asked Sunrise if they need some help with one of their cleanup areas, but we'll be working on the Chatham Rotary Park down here on Thames Street and the Rotary Eco Trail, and put a small crew in there just to do a bit of cleanup. Unfortunately there, especially it is down the riverbank trying to reach into the creek to pull things out of there that don't really belong. So we'll see what we can do with that. So, and if you have some younger family or friends available, bring them along. We'll tether them to a rope if we have to. The other thing is the board still working on the 2021-2022, our 100th anniversary. We're getting more things coming along with things that we're doing as well. We have approved the funds going out to 25 of our local high school students, 5 at each of our local high schools, to give them a little bit of a boost towards either furthering education or heading into skilled trades. So a couple of the guidance people that I've talked to are quite delighted that we are trying to persuade this for skilled trades as well, because most of the times before we were always saying, oh, you had to go to university, you had to go to college, but we are as well saying, you know, kids that are heading to a skilled trades, we are asking these students to provide us something. You know, you're not just going to give it away. We're asking them to write us a bit of a note about how they feel and what sort of volunteering they've been able to do in Chatham-Kent, and knowing that it is difficult during these COVID times for them to get a lot of their hours in that are required. So that's on the go. Still throwing out a shout out for anybody. We would like to get a new person in place for our club secretary, and anybody that would take some time to help us on the board would be very much appreciated. And the last thing we're up to, we are getting very close to the Canadian Mental Health Association's Ride, Don't Hide or Walk, as some of us do. We are looking for any corporate sponsors that we might be able to direct towards CMHA. And that event will take place in, it'll be a virtual event, June, for the month of June, but they are going to highlight the Rotary Eco Trail. There will be a event out in Rondo, hiking or biking, something along that line. So supporting CMHA as well, which mental health is always so important, and we all know that for sure. So that's going to conclude our meeting for the day. I have asked Julia if she would prepare one more song for us. This is a song that Peter had rewritten the words to, and if I have any luck with my screen share, I'll try and pop Peter's words onto the screen. And it's kind of our final goodbye to a gentleman that we definitely will dearly miss. Julia, if you would, and if I have a little bit of luck, I'll be able to figure out this screen share properly. Thank you, Julia. And if you'll play us out, we appreciate it very much. Thank you, Julia. And thank you very much, David and Peter. Really appreciate your presentation today. And Peter, our Peter, you'll see the note in the chat from Doug. And wish you all the best. Take care, everybody.